There are several asset optimization and generational wealth strategies and concepts that I've taught now for 5 decades. This is disclosed in my most recent best-selling book, Entitlement Abolition, and I'm going to gift you a copy of this if you'd like at the end of this episode, free. You just contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. But in this book, I talk about 3 false belief patterns. And the second false belief pattern is this: that your leadership role ends when your children or your grandchildren are out of the nest. You cannot believe how many people say, whatever my kids do with what I leave behind is their problem. No, it's like throwing a rock in a pond. Whatever you choose to do will ripple for generations. You can set them up for success or failure. Stay tuned here, and I'm going to explain what you can do differently so you do not ruin your kids and grandkids. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist for 5 decades, and helping people optimize assets. And when I say that, a lot of times people think I'm talking about just money, financial assets. No, the most important assets that people value, cherish, and possess are their family, their heritage, their unique abilities, charitable foundations. There's also the intellectual dimension, which is your knowledge and experiences. Those 2 times together equals your wisdom, your education, your reputation, systems, methods, traditions, alliances, ideas, and skills. So this is like a 3-legged stool. These are 3 dimensions. So when we talk about this false belief pattern number 2, people want to know what they can do to correct it. So when I state in a seminar that your leadership role ends when your children are out of the nest, some people go, yeah, I mean, whatever they do with what I leave behind is their problem. No, you can set them up for success or failure by how you leave it behind. And once they understand this, that they have control into future generations, wow, this makes sense. So in the first false belief pattern, where we say that equal distribution is the fairest way to treat those we care about, and I dispel that by saying, no, we want to have equal opportunities. Because traditional estate and financial planning, unfortunately, is 4 Ds, where when you die, they divide up your assets and they defer, and then it gets dumped or dissipated on ill-prepared heirs. And so wealth is transferred without a system that fosters responsibility and accountability. So what we do is we focus on 4 Ps instead of 4 Ds. We want to preserve, protect, perpetuate, and prosper. We want to have a system where wealth, and it's more than the money, it's all your knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits, that's transferred down to future generations with a system that actually requires responsibility and accountability. So how do you do that? Well, let's look at this framing again. Here's the 3 dimensions, like a 3-legged stool: financial, foundational, and intellectual. And so in my book, Entitlement Abolition, I talk about setting up a perpetual cash fund. This is like a conceptual family bank. And so this is spelled KASH. And what I teach in the book is that after you pass away, your children and grandchildren, future generations can have access to the financial assets with a system that fosters responsibility and accountability. They don't just get an inheritance. They can borrow money, and they have to have a system to pay it back. If they can't pay it back with money, then they pay it back other ways by working, by shampooing carpets or painting or mowing lawns or whatever. You give them some dignity. Okay, so that you're giving them a hand up, not a handout. And so there's ways that you can help them financially. But these 2 have to do with the KASH, where you're making withdrawals out of the family wisdom and knowledge and experiences, okay? Both good and bad experiences. So you have to deposit these. And in the book, I explain how you capture these experiences of starting a business, whether it was successful or if it failed. And you deposit all of this into the family record for the future withdrawal and use into perpetuity, so that future generations don't have to start all over again and make the same mistakes. This should seem like a no-brainer. And so when we talk about KASH in this, I call it the Perpetual Cash Fund. I'm talking about an acronym that means knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. See, I'd rather leave behind this cash than CASH if I have to choose between the two, because this is leaving behind how to fish to my kids and grandkids instead of just dumping a bunch of fish in their lap. I'll feed them for a lifetime. And so when we talk about this concept, it's really being healthy, wealthy, and wise in all three dimensions. It's having a three-legged stool and taking the wobble out of that, because so many times, we accumulate maybe our wealth at the expense of health. And then later in life, we're spending all our wealth trying to regain that health. Or many people accumulate their financial wealth at the expense of relationships here and here with their spouse, their kids, or their grandkids, or their God. And at the end of the day, they always have what I call absolutely unacceptable regrets. They're not going to take any of the money with them. There's no luggage racks on hearses, as the song says. And so they realize that they are bankrupt sometimes in these areas, and they're wobbling just on money, and money doesn't buy happiness. And so they want to take the wobble out of their life and get balanced again. And that's why I wrote the book Entitlement Abolition. So it's really teaching you, and then you teaching those that you care about in your family, how to live and love, how to learn, how to give, and how to earn. And watch what happens. So in the book, I talk about ways that my wife and I do that with our children and grandchildren. One way is by going to third world countries on humanitarian trips. This is a picture of when we were in the Dominican Republic more than a decade ago. And we go there and get up at 5 a.m. and we take a chicken bus ride for an hour into the country. And then we set up a dental clinic. I'm not a dentist, but my brother-in-law, who's conducted 200 of these, he's a world-renowned dentist. And so we go there. We set up generators or shade tarps, and here we had a church to conduct it in that was donated that day by a woman who had been using microloans. Now, if you don't know what a microloan is, this is where in these third world countries, they can present a business plan to become self-reliant, and they borrow money to start their business. Now, she spoke at the devotional that morning before we treated 130 patients, which we do every day for 2 weeks. And she talked about how she borrowed a couple of $100 years before and got a shade tarp and set up a beauty salon. And she paid that loan back at 21% interest in weekly loan payments. Now, this is a nonprofit organization. Where does the interest go? It goes to pay for the professor that comes weekly to teach them how to be responsible and accountable and reinvest in the business. She had borrowed and paid back 17 microloans at 21% interest. She now owned a strip mall with her beauty salon. She owned a church, a hospital, a dental clinic, and a school. See, you give back to society, and that's the ones who earned the right to have their dental work. Even their children have to work 3 days in the sugarcane field to earn $3 to have their teeth worked on. And so that's called having skin in the game. So these were their children that day, and they were neat and clean, waiting for their teeth to be worked on. They've been working 3 full days to have that privilege. And that day, there was... as we got off the bus, there were some Haitian children that had been brought in about a week earlier, shortly after the earthquake. And the Haitian children were grabbing my wife's necklace off of her neck and trying to rip it off and trying to pull her pierced earrings through her ears. They tried to grab my watch off of my wrist. And these children are like, what are you doing? Why do you think the Haitian children were doing that? Because after the earthquake, they learned really fast to get a handout, because when the foreigners showed up, go grab as fast as you can and then go hide and try to get as much as you can. And after a while, they noticed these children were getting their teeth worked on, and they said, well, I have a toothache. And these kids said, well, go work for 3 days. And these children were like, we have to work? Why don't we just have it given to us? It's very hard to undo entitlement mindsets. You want to give them a hand up, not a handout. So we teach this in our family on family retreats with a purpose. My wife and I hold an annual Grandpa's Camp. It's one of our favorite traditions, where we bring our grandchildren together. The 12-year-olds and older come for the first 4 days, and we talk teenage talk, and we teach them critical thinking. We teach them actually 20 skills that the colleges and universities are not effectively teaching today. And I have a whole series about those 20 lessons that you can look at on my YouTube channel. But this was the first one 12 years ago. We had one on America. Well, this was put on the whole armor of God because we're Christian. This was America, the land of liberty. And we taught them stories that are taken out of the school history books because of religious connotation. We want our kids to know the real stories behind America, okay? And here was a recent one where the older ones were getting ready to go on a hike, and here's the younger ones. And so it's the highlight of our summer. And so if you want to learn and see some of my agendas for doing this, the secret is to lead from the front. Lead your legacy using powerful principles, tried and proven concepts, and leadership tools. And we have these 20 tools that you can use to be able to teach those that you care about critical thinking, how to be responsible and accountable, how to have charisma and likability, how to communicate, all kinds of very powerful things that, frankly, the colleges and universities are not effectively teaching today. But I would recommend conducting family vacations with a purpose, a grandpa's camp. Once your kids experience this, because they'll resist it at first. They'll say, we don't want to go on a vacation to learn. We want to just go sit under a palm tree. Well, once you do this, I mean, we scuba dive, bike, hike, golf, and fish, but for 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the evening, we get together and teach. And then we share throughout the day, and they love it. That's what they remember most. So this is explained in chapters 7 and 8 of my Entitlement Abolition book that I want to gift you here at the end of this episode. And I'm going to give you just one quick example of one of the principles out of 20 that we teach. This has been a game changer. I learned it from Marshall Thurber, a mentor of mine who learned it from Dr. Edwards Deming, the total quality management engineer that transformed Japan to the quality they put out today compared to when I was a kid. Anything made in Japan was junk or cheap. And he would teach and say, unfortunately, so many people in the world today deal below the line. And he would draw a line and he'd say in one of 3 zones, blame, always blaming why they can or cannot or did not do something. Blame, blame, blame. Or one rung up on the ladder is justified, why they did or did not or can or cannot do something. Or one rung up on the ladder is shame. Oh, I'm not smart enough. I don't have any money. Nobody ever taught me that. He said, it doesn't matter which one of these 3 zones that you operate in, it's an absolute waste of time, energy, money, resources. It's only when you deal above the line that you progress. What's above the line? Whatever curveball life throws at you, don't take the victim role. Don't be a clam on the bottom of the ocean waiting for plankton to float to you, for somebody to come and bail you out and rescue you. No, we have an eagle on top of the flagpole in America, not a clam. You respond to any situation with all your ability, and a higher power will make up the difference. God helps those who help themselves is what we teach our kids and grandkids. Responsibility is to yourself. Accountability is to others, okay? Now, what Deming would do is gamify this. And so he told Marshall Thurber, who was a Fortune 500 company consultant, to play this game, a $2 rule. He went out to a Fortune 500 company, explained this, and put posters up all over the company on every floor, and played a game for 90 days. People had to bring dollar bills in their money clips or purses. And anytime anybody dealt below the line, anybody else in the company, you could challenge the president if you want to say, was that $2? And if they agreed they were doing one of these 3 things, they would voluntarily put $2 into a jar, and they were going to collect the proceeds and donate whatever they collected in 90 days to a charity. Well, they collected over $250,000 in 90 days. That charity got a nice donation. Guess what happened to the productivity of the company that quarter? It went through the roof. So they kept playing the game the rest of the year. It was the most profitable year they'd ever had. Everybody got a bonus greater than their salary, and everybody got a huge increase in salary because everybody started dealing above the line. We do that in our family. If we were to go scuba diving and I were to ask my 5th child, Mindy, we're going scuba diving. We're ready to get on the boat. Where's your snorkel, mask, and fins? If she were to say, oh, Dad, I would have remembered, but Aaron was bugging me. $2. Now we have to go back to the dive shop and get your snorkel, mask, and fins. If she were to say, I would have brought them, but the strap broke on my fins yesterday when we were snorkeling, it wouldn't have done any good. No, you should have reminded us to get new straps back at the dive shop, $2. If she said, Oh, Dad, you know me. You have to remind me. I'm always forgetting. $2. Shame, shame, shame. It's an absolute waste. Now, if we say, Mindy, where's your snorkel, mask, and fins? If she were to say, oh, I'm so sorry, my bad, everybody. Here's some sweet rolls and guava and nectar on me. I'm going to pay the driver to go back to the dive shop. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Banana splits are on me tonight. Will you please forgive me? How would we feel about Mindy now? She's dealing above the line. This is a game changer. So teach responsibility and accountability by gamifying. Use the $2 rule. This is explained in the book I want to gift you on page 64. I teach these concepts on my YouTube channel. I have over 1,000 videos. If you can't explain it, just pull up one of several videos where I talk about the $2 rule and dealing above the line, and I'll explain it. What am I selling? Well, clarity is the biggest thing, but when people say, Doug, what are you selling? Clarity, balance, focus, and confidence, because when you have clarity, you'll have unlimited energy. When you have balance, that takes the wobble out of your life. You go down the highway out of balance, you have wobble. You take the wobble out, you balance, and that increases the velocity in which you'll achieve your destination or your goals. With those two, you'll have a much greater focus on what matters most. That increases the accuracy, okay? With those three, you'll have much greater confidence. In every situation, confidence attracts opportunities. Lack of confidence repels opportunities. So when people say, Doug, what do you teach at Grandpa's camp? Well, our grandkids started at age 4 and they graduated at age 20. During that 16 years, I want to switch them from where most kids today have more capability than opportunities, big C, little O, that our graduates will have more opportunities the rest of their life than they have capability to seize. That's a nice problem, and it's easy to solve with a filter that helps you determine which opportunities you're going to seize, which ones you're going to delegate, and which ones you're going to walk away from, instead of going down detours and dead ends and having to backtrack. So many kids don't know how to make those decisions. I wrote an article for Harvard Business Review. You know how hard it is to get published in that? It went to the front page in 24 hours. I couldn't believe it. Harvard didn't even teach their students the skill of how to prioritize what matters most. So this is explained in the Entitlement Abolition book. It's actually 12 chapters. The first 4 talk about the problem of how we get in these traps of entitlement. And here's all this abundance, and yet we're all fighting, okay, and backbiting. And the last 8 chapters talks about the legacy bank, United We Stand, family retreats, Grandpa's camp, managing knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits, and the CASH, abolishing entitlement in the workplace and leading from the front. And then what happens? Everybody breaks out of this entitlement trap. Everybody collaborates, and abundance breeds abundance. So that is the dynamic concepts. If you want to learn about it, claim your free copy of Entitlement Abolition. Simply go to entitlementabolitionbook.com or click on the link below. Contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that. I'll pay for the book and fire out a hard copy to you.